All right, I don't have any additional questions at this time. We'll go back to Attorney Foy. Any follow-up questions for Ms. Kimmel?
Yes. Ms. Kimmel, with respect to Mr. Hunsicker's FPR investigation, why didn't you, as the HR representative, speak to him?
So I believed that the investigation by the supervisors was complete. They had the conversation with him. We had all of the information that we needed to make that final determination.
You also testified a little bit about progressive discipline. Can you explain how progressive discipline and the FPR process work together or not?
Yeah, so we have a progressive discipline policy for our corrective action policy, but within that policy, there are options for steps to be skipped, is what we call them. So you can go from nothing to a verbal, nothing to a written, nothing to a DML, or nothing to termination, depending on the severity of the violation. So within our policy, there are options to skip steps and not follow that progressive path.
And if you have an FPR situation where those first three questions are answered yes, does progressive discipline then apply?
No.
How did Mr. Hunsicker learn of his termination?
Via phone call. I called him.
And can you describe that phone call, please?
Yes, so I called Eric and I let him know that his employment had been terminated, and he was disappointed and upset.
And what were your emotions during that phone call?
I was also upset.
Okay. I have nothing further.
Any recross, Attorney Olson?
Did you giggle at some point in the termination call?
No.
Okay, that's all I have.
All right, is Ms. Kimmel excused from future testimony then, Attorney Foy?
Unless for some reason she is needed for recall, I believe she can be excused.
Attorney Olson, do you expect recalling this witness at all?
I do not.
All right, Ms. Kimmel, then you're free to go. Thank you for participating this afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you.
And then Attorney Foy, who's the next witness for the respondent?
Kelly Manelski.
Ms. Manelski, if you'd please raise your right hand, I'll swear you in for your testimony. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so be God? I think you might be muted, Ms. Manelski.
My apologies. I do.
All right. If you'd state your name for the record, spelling your last name.
Kelly Manelski, Manelski.
What is your position with Charter Steel?
Director of HR Operations.
And how long have you worked in that capacity?
Since December of 2019.
Who is your direct supervisor?
Aaron Van Roy.
All right, Attorney Foy, questions for Ms. Manelski.
Ms. Manelski, you understand that you are, again, under oath and you are giving sworn testimony, correct? And that you're required to tell the truth in your testimony today? Is there any reason that you are not able to give truthful and honest testimony today?
No.
Okay. You just testified about your current position with Charter Steel. Can you describe some of your job duties for us, please?
Yes. So as the Director of HR Operations for Steel, I have responsibility for all three locations: Saukville, Wisconsin, Cleveland, Ohio, Astoria, Ohio. I am responsible for the HR teams that support each of those sites. And the primary responsibilities of the HR operations teams are really around employee experience, supporting recruitment, talent, employee relations.
Okay. And how long have you been with Charter in total?
16 years.
Can you describe your series of positions over that time, please?
Yes, I started as an HR generalist. I've had varying scopes of responsibility for different plants or locations, and I've held positions of generalist, HR supervisor, Ohio HR manager, and then this most recent position of director of HR operations.
And just one more time, because I don't think I wrote it down quickly enough, but how long have you held the position of HR Director of Operations?
Since December of 2019, 3 years.
Are you familiar with the complainant in this case, Mr. Hunsicker?
I am,
How so?
as a result of his FPR violation, and I know of him as a former melt shop maintenance employee.
Did you interact with Mr. Hunsicker prior to the FPR violation at all?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Going back to your description of your job duties and responsibilities, can you please just generally describe some of Charter's employment policies and expectations?
Yes, Charter is an equal opportunity employer.
No, object, this is redundant.
It's foundational to Ms. Manelski's testimony today.
I mean, I guess we could take some testimony in this regard. I think Ms. Kimmel did testify to some of this, so but we can get some of this down from Ms. Manelski. Go ahead, Attorney Foy. I guess Ms. Manelski was testifying. Go ahead and finish your answer.
Charter is an equal opportunity employer. We look to ensure that we are compliant with all legal obligations. Any type of decision where it's selection from candidates through decisions made through employment is based on purely qualifications of an individual, not based on race, religion, gender, age, military status. Their aspect of employment policy is our safety guidelines and safety practices. Aligned with our core values of the company, we promote that safety is our number one value. And then other policies, I would say from just a very general standpoint, it would be what you expect with most employers, outlining moving from compliance to general practices of day-to-day operations.
Thank you. You testified that you have oversight over 3 different plants and plant locations. So do those charter policies vary location to location?
We have one handbook that applies to all 3 locations.
I would like to focus your attention, please, on Charter's safety policies and safety practices.
Mm-hmm.
Can you describe for us, please, Charter's focus areas for employee safety?
Yes, so safety essentially stems from caring about our employees and making sure that not only are they safe, that we're providing a safe working environment, that we are training them in terms of being aware of recognizing hazards so that they can work safely and keep their coworkers safe as well. Safety policies, I would say, are also centered around a stop work culture, which means that if you are ever uncertain about how to perform a task safely, that you are supported in stopping the work and that you should seek your supervisor to understand how to do that task safely.
Okay. Can you please describe, again with a little more specificity, Charter's expectations around fall protection and employee practices?
Yes. Charter's fall protection is, or fall protection expectations is aligned with OSHA's standards, which requires that if working at any height, 4 feet or above, an employee is required to be properly tied off.
And again, why does Charter have this rule about 4 feet and tying off?
It is in accordance with OSHA's fall protection standards.
And what is an employee supposed to do if he or she believes that they're not able to tie off or use fall protection?
Complete the task and seek out their supervisor to understand how to perform the task safely.
Your audio cut out for a minute for me, so could you just please just repeat that answer?
Sure. The employee is not to complete the task, and they're to seek out their supervisor to determine how to complete the task safely.
Thank you. How do Charter employees know about these fall protection expectations?
There's a number of trainings provided. I would say going back to their first week of employment, we have an extensive orientation process that touches on safety policies and training. And then there are refresher trainings provided on an ongoing basis.
And are you aware of what happens when a Charter employee violates a safety expectation?
Yes.
Can you describe that for us, please?
Yes. Safety violations range from something that could be considered a personal protective equipment violation, PPE violation, through what we've been talking about today, our fatality prevention responsibilities. I would highlight that the fatality prevention responsibilities, or FPRs, have been identified by Charter because those areas are the leading reasons of fatalities. And therefore, we want to ensure that we have more robust training in place to support these activities that result in the result more frequently in fatalities. So depending on the nature of the safety violation, it can range from coaching conversations through formal corrective action up to and including termination.
Okay. Specifically, can you describe the FPR process currently in place at Charter?
Yes. When an FPR occurs, the employee is, well, first it needs to be identified as an FPR. So an FPR only occurs in 5 given areas, which are lockout, tagout, fall protection, confined space, mobile equipment, and cranes. So if a safety violation happens in those 5 areas, there is an investigation that is conducted by leaders of that plant. The employee is asked to account the details of what happened, and we will likely send that employee home depending on the severity of the situation, pending the outcome of the investigation. Once the investigation is complete, that plant management team makes a recommendation for corrective action. Depending on the level of corrective action today, that recommendation then goes through an approval process by our operations safety leadership team.
Okay. During your time as the Director of HR Operations, has that FPR process been consistent or has it evolved?
It has evolved.
And can you describe that evolution and the timing of it, please?
It's evolved over time as we continue to improve our safety journey, trying to continuously improve the conditions of our work environment. So through 2019, when I first came into this role, we did not have all 5 areas identified as FPRs. And through the course of 2020, when I say we, the Operations Safety Leadership Team, worked on enhancing the program and developing more consistent guidelines. And at the outset of that work, we rolled out an updated program at the beginning of 2021 that includes the investigation form that we've been discussing today, as well as adding the area of cranes to be identified as an FPR.
And just again, with respect to timeline, can you describe a little bit about when the current FPR process was put in place?
Yes, it was rolled out at the beginning of 2021. And I would also say that prior to that rollout, some of the expectations were unchanged as far as identifying lockout, tagout, confined space, fault protection. So those were not changes, more so the structure and consistency around the process.
Can you speak a little bit more about the need for consistency in the process?
Yes. I would say that that actually stems from 2 places, primarily 2 places. One is in that prior to 2019, we were working with a third-party group called DECRA that specializes in safety, and we had completed of our primarily operations employees to get their feedback on safety. And one of the outcomes of that survey was our employees felt that we did not have either fair or consistent processes in place when it came to safety and corrective action. DECRA calls that in their survey tool procedural justice. So we were able to see that our procedural justice score was lower. So that was one of the first identifiers that we wanted to improve that. We wanted to improve and have a more consistent process in place. I would say one of the second reasons was that me actually being new in role and having oversight for all 3 locations and having the ability to see what was happening in each of the plants as a centralized person, I could see that we had opportunities to gain alignment and be more consistent.
You spoke or you mentioned the occupational safety leadership team, or is it an operations safety leadership team?
Operations. Mm-hmm.
Operations. Okay. And who sits on that team?
Currently?
Just generally speaking, who
Okay.
who comprises that team?
Sure. It's division leaders. Our director of safety leads the team. And so our director of safety, Kevin Berg, our director of operations for Wisconsin, Steve Speth, our director of operations for Ohio, Brian Hazoffel, and then the director of HR operations, myself. At the beginning of when the team was formed in 2020, we also had a director of logistics, Andrew Gash. He's no longer with the company, and that role no longer exists in the organization.
Okay, so then I just want to clarify, in 2001, who was on that operations safety leadership team?
In 2021.
Sorry, 2021, I misspoke. Thanks.
No problem. Kevin Berg, myself, Steve Speth, Brian Hasoffel, and Andrew Gash.
And can you describe that OSLT role in process when there is an FPR violation?
After a violation occurs, the area where the incident occurs, that plant, their plant management team makes a recommendation on active action. And because this was a new approach to this process and we wanted to ensure consistency across all 3 locations, once that recommendation was made, it then was rolled up to the OSLT for a final review and approval.
Okay. And I just want to be very clear on this point of timing. When would you say the new or the revised FRP process was put into place at Charter?
At the beginning of 2021.
To your knowledge, was that new process rolled out to employees?
Yes.
I would like to draw your attention specifically to Mr. Hunsicker's safety violation that occurred in April of 2021. Are you familiar with that incident?
Yes.
And can you describe what you know of that safety violation?
Yes. So I became aware and involved after the incident had occurred and the melt shop plant management team had proposed the recommendation of termination. That recommendation of termination was then presented to the OSLT for us to review and approve, which we did.
Okay. And then, I apologize if this feels redundant, but specifically for Mr. Hunsicker's FPR violation, tell me who was on that OSLT.
Okay. It was the same 5 individuals that I mentioned earlier: Kevin Berg, myself, Steve Speth, Brian Hazoffel, and Andrew Gash.
And can you describe the demographics of those team members, please?
Yes, they are all ages range at the time of April, ages ranging 42 to 56, all older than 40. I can confidently say that.
And can you describe the outcome of the OSLT review process for Mr. Hunsicker's violation?
Yes, we supported the recommendation of termination.
Why did you support that recommendation?
Based on the investigation and the information obtained in the investigation, the questions that we have identified as critical to the process of was the employee's actions within their own control? Did the incident have the potential, had the potential to be severe? And was the employee trained? With all 3 of those answers being answered as yes, we agreed. And we agreed with the supporting reasons to the answer of yes. And with those 3 answers being yes, termination was the result.
Did any other factors play into the decision of the OSLT to affirm the termination?
No.
And ultimately, who has decision-making authority in these FPR situations?
It's a team decision. We discuss the incidents until we have a consensus agreement.
And just between the OSLT and plant leadership or a supervisor, again, who has the ultimate decision-making authority if there's disagreement?
The OSLT.
I would like to call your attention to Respondents Exhibit 4, which is labeled R30 and R31, and it has been marked in this case as Exhibit 1. That looks correct. Are you familiar with that document?
Yes.
Can you describe what it is, please?
This is the investigation form that was completed by the melt shop plant management team following Mr. Hunsicker's fall protection incident.
And how are you familiar with that document?
This is the document that was used to propose their recommendation to terminate Mr. Hunsicker.
How did the OSLT use this document?
As a tool to understand the nature of the investigation, what was found through the investigation, to understand how the critical questions, the top 3 critical questions were answered, and to understand any other, just the details of the investigation.
And what happens if members of the OSLT have additional questions about the incident?
We invite the plant manager of that area to our discussion to review the incident.
Did that occur with Mr. Hunsicker's FRP investigation?
Yes.